so much. I'm glad they have mic'd me up nice and loud. Thank you. And I don't normally sound like this, it's terrible, but you'll have to bear with me. And I wish there was a good excuse. It wasn't a good party or anything like that. I have a 3.5-year-old, and it's probably likely it was something that I've picked up from daycare, so that's lovely. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. I bet you've all had an amazing time. It sounds like the speaker before me, I said, gosh, everyone looks so kind of enthralled, and they said, oh, she's an incredible speaker. So I would have liked to have been part of that myself. But I'm going to share with you today my learnings, my business journey, and some of the milestones that I've had along with some of the struggles. There is time at the end of my presentation for questions, and I'd love, love, love for you guys to interact as much as possible, so please feel free to join us at the end for questions. I wanted to open with a nod to a wonderful New Zealander hopefully you've heard of, Sir Ray Avery. He's one of my heroes, and when I met him I was about 30. He was acknowledged as New Zealander of the Year in 2011. He's a mad scientist among many things and saved 20 million people's eyesight with the Fred Hollows Foundation. But what I like about him, I met him on the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year judging panel, and I was a finalist and I was terrified. And I was in this boardroom meeting, around, like really fancy people around the table, and I was so nervous, and I just didn't really know what I was doing in the room really. But he said to me, now K-Dub, you're 30 years old, you've lived 14,000 of your days, what are you going to do with the 16,000 you've got left? And I thought, wow, you know, like what an incredible way to look at things. He challenges you that you're born with 30,000 days in our best circumstances. And so it's really, for me, not a morbid thought at all. I think that's something that stuck with me, and more around just the happiness factor. Like if we're not loving what we do, and if it's not feeling like the right relationship or job or whatever it is, it's kind of a good reminder that we've got 30,000 days. You know, he even breaks it down to summers. And for him, it's just about being happy. Like, you know, make sure you're doing something that you love. And I luckily have a mother, a wonderful mother who is a primary school teacher. And she encouraged me from a very young age to choose a job you love and you never work a day in your life. So I will always be grateful for that. This was my first pair of shoes my mother kept for me. I grew up in Papakura. I was the youngest of 3 girls. And my oldest sister, I was just speaking with Antonia, my oldest is very academic and really clever and amazing, does medical IT science. And my middle sister has gone on to have 8 children. She's a midwife. And anyway, going through school, I was almost the young one, the little one that got away with a lot. I'm sure if there's any youngest babies in the room. But definitely the one that was encouraged to do something creative, because I think Mum probably saw in me that I was a bit of a kindred spirit. I was a super creative child. At school, I was good at art. We would decorate, and this is in the 80s, our para rubber shoes. We went and got Commando M's and Kung Fu's, and as sisters, we would have competitions together and who could like make your shoes the coolest. So we had puff paintings and you know, those paints you used to like put the hairdryer on and puff out and decorate them, but I would go one step further, cut the sides out, turn them into slingbacks and like make them an open toe. Mum would be horrified because they're brand new shoes, Kathryn, and I'd say, but no one has a pair like these, Mum. So I don't think, looking back, that I was destined to be a shoe designer. I just liked things done a little bit differently, and I'm really fortunate to have a mother that encouraged me to go that way. This was an exhibition that we celebrated our 10-year anniversary 5 years ago now at Saatchi & Saatchi Gallery. And it was this beautiful event, and it was a fancy kind of cocktail night, and this opened the exhibition as the first thing was, you know, these fancy advertising guys did this exhibition, and that was my first pair of shoes. It went on to show all the sketches and the designs and all sorts of media over the years, and it was a cool night, but probably quite formal and a bit fancy. So Mum rang me the next day. She said, oh, I'm just back at that exhibition at Saatchi & Saatchi. It was open for 6 weeks, so it was open to the public. And she said, oh, wasn't it neat last night, darling, and wasn't it special? And I just loved being, I said, yeah, Mum, you know, I'm busy. And she said, well, I was just ringing to tell you the shoes at the front. I was just letting you know there was no security guard there, so I've taken them. I was like, Mum, they're part of the exhibition, you know, like it's open to the public. And she said, well, I've kept them for 34 years. I'm not losing them now. So a nice reminder too that for Mum, it's not all about kind of where I've gone or what I've done with it. She's just very much around this. I had a love of shoes. I had my first job after school was at a shoe store, at Andrebiani Shoes in Manukau City. And I was a meet and greeting girl at Christmas time with a hat on and said, "Merry Christmas, welcome to Andrebiani." And I think I just from there developed a bit of a love. I would volunteer to work on the weekends out at the factory in New Lynn, and I would make videos of how they were making the shoes. And it went on to, at high school level, obviously my good grades were coming from those creative subjects. So luckily, again, I had a mother that said, well, if that's what you're enjoying and that's what you're good at, let's enrol you into tertiary. I've got mum being a primary school teacher, I wasn't allowed to leave school till I was going into university or tech. So I thought at 16, I know it all, I know what I want to be. I don't need science, I don't need biology, I want to be a shoe designer, I'm off to tech. And I worked at Andrebiani. My manager there at the time, I'll never forget, picked up the phone and she said, well, who do you look up to in the fashion industry, and who's someone that you always think, imagine? I said, well, Karen Walker's amazing. She's about 10 years into her career, and I really look up to her. And so she literally, this is back in the day where there were white pages, yellow pages, looked up the head office number, passed me the phone and said, tell her you'll sweep the floor for free. And of course I was terrified. I mean, this is like 17, 18-year-old ringing in like my hero. And I remember the moment of like stuttering down the line, hi, I'm Kathryn, I'm from Papakura and I'm a fashion student. And of course they welcomed me and said, sure, if you come in we take one internship a year, you can come in every Monday. And I got the train in at like 6 a.m. from Papakura, and I remember every Monday I hated it. I would just be so terrified that everyone was so cool and everyone was so amazing, and I'd be like, oh God, I hope no one talks to me, because they were all just so, it was such an incredible thing to be part of. But as I would silently be ironing garments in the corner or pricing sale things, I was learning and listening the whole time and picking up so much that by the end of that first year at AUT, I was decided, right, I'm going to be in this industry, this is definitely for me. And I applied for Massey University, the best design school in New Zealand. I still think it has an incredible reputation for design. Went down to Wellington with a friend, and in my second year, my lecturers were starting to learn me as the girl that liked shoes. So wherever I could within the curriculum, I would kind of convince them to teach me if I could do it about shoes. So the rest of the class would do history of a little black dress, I'd do the history of a stiletto, or where it was obviously a little bit harder, but I would kind of go find my way around it to make it all about shoes. So in my second year, we all applied for the scholarship to go to England, and I was thinking, and this is my chance to learn shoes. You can't study shoes in New Zealand, so I definitely chose the hard way around. But we all memorised how many people live in London, and all these questions that we were getting asked in the interview, how far it is north of London to Nottingham, and all these things, and of course all of my student friends were like, what did you say, what did you say, what questions did they ask, so we all went into the same interview. When I got the call and they said, congratulations Kathryn, you've won the scholarship, you're going to England, I remember ringing Mum and I was like, Mum, I don't want to go to England, I have to break up with my boyfriend, and it was like, it was the scariest thing in the world, because I'd never probably been that far away. And that, absolutely no one that I knew, and on the other side of the world. And saying that, it was such a pivotal moment of my life that I was exposed to so many incredible things. I was in lecture theatres with 3,000 design students, learning from the current footwear designer from Topshop about colour palettes for 2015, or like trend prediction of packaging and marketing, and all these incredible opportunities that I was just this little girl from Papakura with my jaw kind of down most of the time, and the New Zealander that loves shoes. So I of course made life friendships. It was wonderful. I came back to New Zealand super determined and really kind of headstrong to be New Zealand's name in shoes. So I think it was almost a turning point for me that I really wanted to take it really seriously as a career. I think obviously the scale of what I saw overseas as the fashion industry was such an incredible opportunity to imagine if I could do that back in New Zealand. So I came back all gung-ho after growing up in Papakura, and this is in the local courier with old Jonah back in the day. I applied for an AMP scholarship. And this was with a lecturer that had come to university in Wellington and as a guest speaker. And he'd come in and talk to us. I can't remember what it was even about. He was the head of Fins. And anyway, he contacted me once I graduated and said, are you the girl that loves shoes? I've heard of this scholarship program and I thought it would be perfect for you. If you want, I'll help you put together your portfolio or CV and we'll put the application in together. A wonderful man, Paul Blomfield, and I will never forget that because he didn't know me from a bar of soap, but my story, or probably all my questions and all my hand-up time in that class, whatever he was teaching, he remembered that I was so passionate about shoes and that I really wanted to build a career in it. So we applied for the scholarship together. It was $5,000, and I was going to make my first shoe samples here in New Zealand. And again, in this judging panel, it was terrifying because I was out of my depth. You know, they're the most amazing people all in the judging panel, and Dame Roseanne Mayo, who I met then, who's become a good friend and a mentor for me. I remember them saying, do you have any affiliation with AMP, and do you know much about what we do? I said, yeah, sure, my stepdad's a farmer, and he goes to the AMP show every year. Which was, they didn't correct me, which is the worst thing, because I remember telling Mum when I got home, and she just shakes her head like, oh, I don't think you're going to get that scholarship, darling. But again, I said, oh, Mum, it was so embarrassing when I was acknowledged as one of the winners. It was wonderful, delightful. Went to this special ceremony, and we all had to stand up around the table and say what we were going to do with our money. And some of the scholarships were all different scale, and there was a heart surgeon that had developed this new technique to transplant hearts while they're still beating on the table, and he was going off to learn something in America with $50,000, and there was a pro tennis player going off to play in the States, and anyway, and of course I was last, and I had to stand up around the table and say, well, I love shoes, and I really want to be a shoe designer. And my mum said, well, darling, I said it was so embarrassing, and they were so clever, Mum, and everyone was really cool. And she said, well, some people save lives, and you're going to design shoes. So something, again, that has stuck with me, to be kind of, I guess, proud of what I contribute at that community level of empowering women and making people feel good about themselves. And it has come full circle that, yes, fashion can be a materialistic industry. It's kind of a fickle thing to be working in every season. But for me, I truly do it for the reason of I love what I do. I actually just love shoes, and then I'm accidentally in business 15 years later. But I love nothing more than seeing women wear them and the feeling that those women get by putting on my shoes and having their head high. When I first graduated out of university, it was 2000. So 2001, 2002, I won the AMP scholarship. I went to a footwear industry AGM board meeting, and of course, being this kind of young, gung-ho, naive whippersnapper, and I said to all my heroes of industry, this is, the Marla brothers and Jan, the sister, Perillo brothers, the Wanganui Tannery, Brooke Monks from David Alman, Kumps of John Robertson, etc., all sitting around this table. And I said, I want to be New Zealand's next name in shoes, and who wants to hire me? It's going to be great. And they all just said, it's dire, like pick another career. Everything has moved offshore. It's a completely changing industry. We've had to restructure like 40, 50-year family businesses to all be based offshore. And so I guess being 21, 22, it spurred me on even more to prove them wrong. I love being told no. I hate being told no, but I love it because it makes me like, right, I'm going to show you. So it was, again, one of those moments of, it didn't necessarily put me off. It was just an eye-opener to what was happening in the industry. And as I was coming in as this, again, naive 22-year-old, there wasn't opportunity to carry on as it's always been done. So the industry in New Zealand was changed so much that it was just, now I have to learn different language. I'll just be between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. on Skype or YouTube, or however I'm going to communicate with people is so different to the traditional, even let alone emails. It's just different time zones and different languages. So since the very beginning, we've been manufacturing now in 5 countries this season, but up to 8 in the past. So again, you just get quite flexible being based at the bottom of the world. We launched the brand in 2003, and it wasn't that much thought went into what it was called. My name is Kathryn Wilson. That went onto the shoes, and sometimes I reflect back on that when you're asked in media, like, why did you name it? Or, what does it mean anything to you? Well, absolutely not. It was just something that I probably thought, let's just see if it works. We started the collection with 7 styles. 7's my lucky number. And they were shoes that I felt weren't in the marketplace at the time. I wanted colourful, playful, happy shoes that make women feel, empowered when you put them on. Don't look at my shoes, a bit boring today. They should be more colourful than this. These are a bit classic. But again, our brand values stay the same. We like to think that we don't have a demographic. We sell to women with a mindset. So I like the thought that when people put on our shoes, it actually, is a joyful thing. It adds to their day. They can take on any board meeting. They can, when you've got the dentist appointment you really don't want to go to, please wear your favourite heels, because I promise you it's so much more fun when you look on that chair and you're like looking down. But anything really where it's celebratory, some of my most fun nights out, the boys in the room are looking at me like, what? Some of my most fun nights out, and I associate with the shoes I had on, because you know what it's like when you have to leave a party or a wedding or something when you can't dance because of your shoes. That should never happen. It's always like a really positive association with wearing your favourite pair. And a big part of the role is obviously travel, which I do enjoy. I still enjoy, even though life's changed and it's now 15 years of being on a plane. I think part of being in New Zealand, as you all know, is we're quite used to travelling. We're used to 12-hour long-haul flights again and again. And again, for me, it's just it's a cool way to communicate with these people that we work with at that boutique level of manufacturing. It's so important to have the relationships that are face-to-face. So it does mean getting on a flight up to Italy and being in shoe fairs that I get so excited about. My husband came with me on the last one and stupidly took our nearly 2-year-old, which is not a good age to fly long haul. And I remember going to the shoe fair with him, and I was so excited, and it's like 4 days, and I just can't obviously get enough. But he would be like, babe, I thought we've already done luxury. And I say, no, that's luxury contemporary. This is the luxury hall, come on, there's a whole new rugby field of shoes. So for me, it never gets old, but obviously people are all driven differently. But a big part of visiting the manufacturers, because all of our shoes are handmade, so whether they're southern China, there's 40 production staff that we work with. I go to their house for dinners. It's very personal. And then it's Italian through agents, or Spanish or Portuguese or Brazilian family businesses. So a lot of that does come down to face-to-face values, which is like in any industry. And it's really important to me to have that respect, because a lot of what I'm asking them is favours outside the square. And it'll be like, I'm the smallest little customer, as you can imagine. We manufacture about 15,000 pairs a season. So it's almost me saying, can you please send them on time? Can I get them quicker than that big order from Germany? And can you just squeeze ours in now, because I'm really nice. So it's always been a part of it that's super important. In 2010, we decided to be the first shoe brand to show at New Zealand Fashion Week. So I partnered with a media agency called Showroom 22, and it was really important. Murray was, who heads that, was saying, I really want you to state your claim in New Zealand as, the shoe designer, and show everyone you mean business, and, we're taking this seriously. So it was really exciting for us to showcase our shoes on a big scale. It wasn't here at the time. I can't remember where they used to do Fashion Week 2010. They do 1,000 people runway. We raised the stage. My mum said, oh, that's a lot of seats. Do you think anyone's going to come? I said, I hope so, Mum. But a really wonderful celebration for the brand, and we got the cover of the Herald the next day, and really neat opportunities sold into the States, into New York and LA and Hong Kong from that. So it was a great thing for the brand in terms of growth as well. For me, it was I had 80 people in the front row that had either been part of my journey or touch points with helping me out, or whether they are model agencies or media or stylists or people that have kind of believed in me from the beginning, and I wrote them all a little personal note. So traditionally in those shows you see all the trade or media or bloggers now, influencers. I was like, no, I don't want any of that. I want the people that mean something to me. So I gifted them all a pair of shoes that I'd made, one of 80 pairs, and they were all signed off, one of 82, of 83 of it, and I wrote a note and I said specifically what it was that had changed my career. And I think that to me was the biggest, probably rewarding moment of putting on a show like that. It's more, yes, the public are looking, but it's very much around who's helped you build that. So the next year, 2011, the Rugby World Cup was here in New Zealand, and I thought after 9 years of wholesaling, by now we sell to about 50 stores around the country, we'd launched a diffusion line called Miss Wilson as well. And Miss Wilson is a range that sits slightly under Kathryn Wilson in terms of price point, but we were able to have double the distribution and have 2 stores in each city or town rather than just the one. So because all of our shoes are limited edition, which is for me, I had an accountant business partner, which he just couldn't see the sense in that. And I'd be like, I don't want too many people wearing our shoes, because I want girls to go like, oh, how did you get them? You're a size 38, they're sold out. And it becomes this feverish, I am one of those consumers myself. But of course the accountant is saying, I don't get it. People have got waiting lists of stores wanting to sell your shoes. We've got the public desperate for more. So the balance was releasing this diffusion line. At the same time, opening our first retail, I said to the accountant business partner, I really think, wouldn't it be cool if we built it in like the shape of a giant shoebox? Like, wouldn't it be fun? And you can go in and it looks like a shoebox, but you can buy shoes. And, and he was just like, why don't we just lease this space like normal people? Half of High Street's empty. So I think from the get-go, I was imagining it as a marketing exercise, really, that it would be super fun. I talked to Peter Cooper, who owns the Britomart complex. I'd never met him before, but cold called and asked for a meeting and said, I've got this cool idea. Your empty car park in between 1885 and whatever was over the road at the time, Tyler Street Garage. I'd like to put a shop on, like a pop-up shoebox. And he was like, why would you do that? There's no retail in Britomart, there's no other stores, it's all hospo. And I said, yeah, but all the women that work in Westpac and Ernst & Young will be tortured in their meetings looking down on this shoebox with my logo on the lid, like it's brilliant. And so he was like, I like it, let's do it. So it was it turned into I think we were there 2 years, which has then developed into our flagship retail store in the Pavilions. And we weren't there long, and Trelise had a container next to us, and then Puma had a container. And so it ended up being a lovely little community for the Rugby World Cup. We had parties in there with Viv Clicquot, and we had manicures on the lawn, and a really fun kind of festive environment for our first retail store. We tested it, we built it as a pop-up, so it was a $90,000, again, the accountant business partner wasn't very happy about it, a $90,000 shoebox that was built out of marine ply and built to be lifted and moved. That was the idea. We didn't know if it would work, but it was gas struts of super yachts on the doors, and it was wrapped in this race car grade vinyl to look like exact replica of our packaging. And we did a campaign with Vodafone, one of our brand partners, to get the public reaction of which city they wanted it to be moved to. Again, it was like a test for us in terms of retail. We didn't really know where our customer was because we wholesale to 80 stores around New Zealand. We were like, where do you want us to be? We'll bring the store to you. So it was a bit of a gimmick. And the men on the Hive unit, you can imagine, just thought I was like bonkers. At 4 a.m. when I met them on site, and I was like, can we put a GoPro on it? Because it'll be really fun if people can check in on social media and watch the shoebox moving. And they were just like, what is she on? I've got a little video here for you to show you.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak!
Don't go back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak!
Don't go back.
You just put on your coat and hat and walk yourself to the laundromat. And when you finish doing that, bring in the dog and put out the cat. Yakety yak!
Don't go back.
So there was a tester. It was a 5-ton shoebox. So we had to test it and move it in Auckland before we knew whether it could go cross-country. After that, it went to Wellington for 6 months. The stupid thing was, can you imagine how hard it was to apply for council licenses in 5 different towns? Because the public were voting which city it went to. And there was Dunedin, Hamilton, Tauranga, Christchurch and Wellington, and Wellington got the most votes, so it went there. But in the meantime, I had to, have so many people on board if it was going to go. I'd never do it again. Good learnings, and again, just completely cup full, optimistic. What's the worst that can happen, And Mum, I remember it snowing when it crossed the desert road, and they had to say, "Oh, look, we're going to have to pull over. It's not going to make it." And going over the crossing, Picton crossing to Christchurch, it missed the first ferry because it was 40 centimetres too wide for the slot where the truck would go in, or something ridiculous. There were so many things that went wrong, but I would never tell Lloyd, the accountant business partner, until it was safe on the ground and done. But yeah, it all went fine. It was great, all to plan. But again, it was a really neat kind of brand experience for us to be launching in different markets in a playful way. So with the Miss Fulson diffusion line, it obviously doubled our business overnight. It was a really commercial decision, and I had to fight with the accountant around it because I wanted our shoes to be limited edition. It was a good learning for me that yes, there is a place in the market for us to be wider, and instantly, I guess, with that kind of cash flow coming in, it enabled us to think bigger. So 2011, we'd just opened this shoebox store. It was the Rugby World Cup. I decided to open our Fashion Week show for the first time ever to public, which is something that Fashion Week weren't that comfortable with because it had never been done before. It's a trade show, and they saw a lot of risk in that. I put billboards around Ponsonby in Auckland, and you could RSVP we launched our social media. This is 2011. I was like, I don't know if we should have Facebook for a brand. Is that a bit naff? It was all still new. So we launched our social media that year with this campaign to come along to our show. We had 3,000 people turn up to this show, and it was incredible. I mean, really, I stupidly project managed it myself. I now have married an event manager husband, and I wish I knew him then. But it was such an amazing experience that I put on at the CityWorks depot. It used to be a car park. It's now the Bauer Media Building. We had an incredible setup with 3,000 people on the raised stage. It was like, I remember the lighting rigging was $50,000 and staging $30,000. It was just an incredible big budget event. I went and sat outside Kimbra, her, what are they called? Artist agency in Sydney. She's a girl from Hamilton, a New Zealand artist that had released her album in Australia, and it was going gangbusters, and hadn't quite launched it here in New Zealand yet. And so I'd asked Warner here, do you think that she would play in New Zealand at Fashion Week? And they said, well, you'll have to deal with her agent in Sydney because they make all the decisions. So I sat outside their office until they would see me. I said, I'm a girl from Papakura. I know she's from Hamilton. Can you just ask her? I was like, I've got this cool idea. I want to have a show and open it to public. And do you think you could just see if she's keen? And again, just probably cup full. What's the worst that can happen? Thank you, Mum. Good learnings. She said yes. She said, I'd love to. Let's launch our album that way in New Zealand and have a full-scale concert. So she played for an hour. I remember it being like on the day I was like, God, I think I better ring St. John's and tell them there's 3,000 people. We're going to have we're having a party now. But it was such a cool thing for the brand. We showed a documentary at the beginning of that show, which we'd filmed all year since February, showing the brand journey and me designing and visiting manufacturers and opening a shop and all these things that we were doing, a show in Dunedin. And it was a way of me romancing these 3,000 people that had come, probably half of them to come to see Kimbra, and then heaps of boys that were dragged along, never heard of either of us, So it was a cool way for them to see the brand before our show started, which was awesome. We opened our flagship stores that following year, so the Britomart Pavilion store. About this time I did a course at the Ice House course. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Ice House through Auckland University. It was funded partly by Trade New Zealand Enterprise and then as a half-sponsored thing. But it was the owner-manager program, and they like you to be 10 years in business, and then they nurture you through what's next and how big you want to take it and where to. And it was a 6-month course. I remember everyone being quite big businesses. There was like a 100 million turnover roadworks company in my forum, or like a retirement village. Definitely, I'm in the wrong industry. Retirement village in my forum, and their bottom line was incredible. But we all kind of Chatham House rules, so you let your guard down, share a lot of your business journey and learn from each other. And at the end of our 6 months, my forum were like, K-Dub, you are screaming out for some governance. Like, you're all over the place, you've got all these ideas and all these opportunities, but who's kind of reining you in? And so their suggestion was, this is the first time, and this is bad as well, first time in 9 years that I'd ever written a business plan. So it was really for me putting things on paper, because as I say, I love shoes, and I accidentally am in business by doing something that's built on a passion. We, by this stage, probably employ about 20 staff, and the advice was to go with a advisory board and have someone that's not necessarily financially responsible for your decisions, but some kind of governance that's giving you some advice. So again, Dame Roseanne Mayo, who was on that judging panel back when I was 22 at AMP, I put my hand up to her. I must have called her and said, can I have 20 minutes of your time? She met me at the Northern Club and suggested 2 contacts of hers for the advisory board, who is still sitting with me now 6 years later. One is an IP trademark lawyer who has really helped in the different markets that we've gone into, things that would be so over my head I can't even begin to explain. And a financial strategist who's come from the Rupert Murdoch. He did over 750 mergers and acquisitions. And with his help, I've just transferred 100% shareholding of the brand this year, which is a wonderful kind of accomplishment for me to get to 15 years in. And the other one is the CFO of Briscoe's Group. So people that completely fill my gaps, because I am not strong, and definitely I love shoes. And I always say to them, stop taking all the fun out of it. Like with our meetings, and that it becomes all about the numbers. And I get it, you have to have strategy, and I get it has to have, direction of financials, but I'm always like, oh, I know, but let's just do it, if it feels right. So there's a good balance there. But with their help, definitely with their help, I have opened 3 stores now in Auckland. So we had Britomart Pavilions is a really corporate audience. We love being there, really important for tourists. Newmarket is a really beautiful shopping precinct. If you haven't been, it's a beautiful gallery-style store in Osborne Street. I love it. It's kind of spacious, and all the shoes are on the wall like art. And then Herne Bay is where our head office is, and that's a beautiful little boutique. It's like you walk into someone's home, and it's filled with all your favourite shoes. But the staff, they just absolutely love being part of something that's a New Zealand brand, and definitely the love of shoes is what shines through. A big part of, I guess, why I love what I do is to fill my cup with people around me that love what they do, essentially. I think there's a clever saying they talk about surround yourself with people cleverer than you. I believe it's surround yourself with people as happy as you or happier than you, because I get so much from, I guess we're all the same as humans, but so much of people around me that make me feel like, I love what you're doing. I want to come on that ride. Or, like it's almost like when you see people getting a lot of satisfaction about what they're doing, whether it's their career or their family or their partner, you kind of get, you feed off that. So we had a beautiful exhibition to celebrate for our 10-year. People that had been around me as the brand and helped me, whether they were stylists, as I mentioned earlier, people that have worked behind the scenes on shows and hair and media, people that have believed in me since the beginning. And of course the superstars that you employ. This is a terrible photo at home. One night for a staff dinner, we did a midwinter Christmas and an ugly sweater competition. But again, the team that all come together to really just kind of have fun. We are lucky enough to be working in shoes every day, so there's not a lot more to it other than, it is around happiness and it is around empowerment and making people feel good. So very much, hopefully, if you've been into our stores, and I hope you do, it's very much that I encourage. I couldn't care less if they sell a pair of shoes or 10 in a day or 20, it's more if people can come in and learn something from us, have an incredible experience in store, take away with them the knowledge of where they're made, what they're made from, and how they feel and how they make you feel when you put them on, is my outcome for sure. And celebrate is a big one for us. I think with our team, we do this cool, we're only a small team, obviously it's a small New Zealand business. With our team meetings, I'm there still. I love to be kind of fronting it, whether I let the others. When I went away and had Lola, she's now 3.5, it was very much around letting the team step up, and they are super capable, and of course they're incredible people involved. But I still like to be in there just a little, even just to hear, because I'm like to chip in every now and then with my little take on things. But the celebration of a team meeting, we have a cool thing called Certificate of Awesomeness, so naff, but the staff will nominate each other for something that they've seen someone else do that's quite cute or quite cool, or helped them out, or covered my shift, or I don't know, they might just see things. And from our perspective at head office, it meant that we were learning what, across all stores and all staff, what was happening, because obviously we don't see what's going on a day-to-day basis. And all it means is they embarrassingly have to read out, the winner from the last one has to read out all the nominations, and then the winner wins a $100 spa voucher or whatever it is. But it's been quite a cool thing for the team that they all now really embrace that. And all month round, these nominations come through. We don't even have to chase them for it anymore. It's just a simple thing that they all think about, which is lovely. The bigger thing we like also to celebrate is with our customers, things like our Fashion Week show, opening it to the public. We do a show in Queenstown every year for Clicko in the Snow, a really wonderful brand alignment that we have with a wonderful champagne brand. But it was the 7th year we did a show this year. I've got a video now to show you of last year. But again, our community events that we do, whether they're Auckland or Wellington or catwalks, often for us a celebration of the new product that's been launched, and very much for us to be able to showcase the brand in a playful way which fits all our values, instead of it being a serious fashion show where the models look hungry. You'll know what I mean when I show you. So something that I feel really passionate about is keeping the brand quite inclusive. And because I am a New Zealand designer, I like the thought that we're super accessible. You know, I don't like there is no hierarchy in the New Zealand fashion industry, and there shouldn't be, because the designers are really on the foot. We're working in the brand, we're there every day, and that's the way I like our customers to experience our brand as well. So hopefully I'd like you all to feel like that when you come into our stores, and hopefully to our shows. A lot of them are public ticketed and often aligned to charity. And one of the best things I get to do is give back. So being an ambassador for Ronald McDonald House is one of my favourite parts about what I do. This is really important to me, and I just guess I've learned over the years, like there's nothing to it, is there? You know, like it's kind of become a given that whatever we do in business, it's business for better good. And that is something I'm sure we're all building into every day. But for me, I just love being part of something that I can contribute in a way of raising awareness. Obviously, our customers are female-led and often mothers themselves, and so they can understand what the need is for something like Ronald McDonald House in terms of awareness. Raising funds, we did this cool event. I decided to do a project to launch our collection, winter, I think it was 17, at the Northern Club with an art exhibition, and I asked 20 artists in New Zealand, sculptors, photographers, artists, to contribute a piece of art that would be auctioned for Ronald McDonald House, using my shoes as the subject. So of course they were incredible, and they were the most beautiful. I wanted to buy them all because they were all like my shoes and paintings, and you know. But one of them I'd asked a jeweler in Parnell. I was like, I know this is crazy, but could you ever like cover a pair of heels in diamonds? Like, would that be a thing, or is that just stupid? She said yes. Can you imagine? I was like, you never know if you don't ask. In New Zealand, 2 degrees of separation as well, not 7, you know, so that whole thing of just put your hand up and ask. She said yes. So we made this shoe in a bank vault, and it was transferred in an armour guard van. It had 16 carats of diamonds on it, and it was valued at $500,000. It met reserve on the night, and it sold. And I remember at the Northern Club, these 2 massive guys standing in front of this glass box, and it was quite theatrical. And obviously everything sold that night, and we raised $30,000 for Ronald McDonald House, which was awesome. But it was more the point that everyone that I'd asked had said yes. Like my heroes, or people that I looked up to in different industries of the creative, you know, New Zealand force, had all said, I love that idea, let's do it. So it was a good lesson for me to just think big again. Don't, you know, like what's the worst that can happen? Don't ever feel like people aren't keen to support. Over the years, like some of the milestones I've had have been awards. I've been very fortunate. I've been acknowledged as a Massey University Distinguished Alumni. Mum was really proud of that one. Mum's favourite one was the Sir Peter Blake Leadership Award, because that meant a lot as a New Zealander. I think that's really cool. Employer of the Year, young business person, young woman in business. Oh, yeah, not young anymore. I didn't fit that category anymore. And that's all wonderful. But I think probably some of the things that have really meant a lot to me are the milestones on a personal level and a warm fuzzy. This is me meeting Jimmy Choo in Malaysia. And I was asked to go up and judge a student competition. And I said, they told, you know, it was for New Zealand Week, like a trade thing. And I said, what are the dates? And they said, March. I said, I could probably make it work because I'm in Hong Kong the following time. And they said, Dato Professor Jimmy Choo is a patron of this. And I said, what? I'm there, like, you know, book the flights. And so the whole way up, I was so excited, and I got to stay at New Zealand House, and it was this fancy experience at the embassy, etc. They got so sick of me because I'd say, do you really think I'm going to meet him? Like, is he actually going to be there? You know, the whole van ride out to this fancy golf course, which was an hour away from KL, and I kept saying, like, imagine if he's there? And they're like, yes, Kathryn, that's what you're here for, you know, he is going to be there. And so when I judged the students, and it was actually a really cool experience as it was, there were big displays from Fonterra and wineries and things, and it was a really neat week for New Zealand. I was introduced to him in this small room, probably about 10 of us, by Stephen Joyce, who was the foreign minister at the time. He said, this is New Zealand's best shoe designer. And and he said, yes, I've seen your website. Congratulations, Kathryn. Can you imagine? I just died inside, like, oh God, what's on the website? Like, what's the landing page? All of a sudden was thinking, has he actually been on our website? And because I was so nervous, and I'd built it up so much, and the whole trip out there, and the whole van ride, and the words just came absolutely pouring out of my mouth in the most unsophisticated way. And I said, I had a dream last night. I was so nervous to meet you. I had a dream I fell over in front of you. And I was just so gutted that I'd said that, because I'd thought about it so much, how I would come across, and I'd be really cool. And, of course, it's an amazing highlight for me to meet him. I was gutted, and I remember putting my head down like, oh God, as the words were spilling out, I could hear them coming, and I thought, oh. And then when I looked up, he was in this big smile and his arms wide, and he said, "But I would catch you, Kathryn." And I was like, "Oh, Jimmy." It made me feel like there's actually that human level to it, that here I was, he's God to me, and like, absolute icon of the industry. He'd just sold the brand for $875 million to the LVMH group. He was a shareholder at that time. I'm not sure how much he retained, but it's incredible, really, at that human, humble level. He was like, "I love what you do." We went on to keep in touch, and that was an incredible time for me, which led to me inviting him back down to New Zealand to host an event a couple of years ago. Again, what's the worst that can happen, right? I remember it was at the Remix magazine, and they said, "We want to do this event. Perhaps we do it as the love of shoes. What are you thinking? Do you want to be involved?" And I said, "Well, why don't we do something really cool and invite someone like Jimmy Choo down to New Zealand?" So when he said yes, we thought, shit, what are we going to do with Jimmy Choo? It was incredible. We got all these sponsors on board for flights and accommodation and all sorts of things, which was so wonderful to bring it together. But of course I was terrified, because this is an absolute hero. How do we entertain him and put on an event that was game-changing and global and worldly? So I decided to build an event on the stage at the Sky City Theatre, with the shoes being a focus of a 9-metre circular rigging of a chandelier, 10,000 metres of ribbon, and 200 pairs of shoes hanging with fresh hydrangeas. It was lovely. But again, we made the event on the stage instead of watching a show. So as the guests came down, and I remember the moment where he arrived and he was walking down the theatre stairs and and he was just absolutely blown away. And it was a really personal event. There were 300 guests. It was wonderful, lots of sponsors and corporates, and really special to me. But I got up on stage and told the story of how I met him, and I stumbled on my words, and he was so wonderful and welcoming. And I think that was such a nice thing to share. We ended up spending 3 days together in Auckland and took him out on a boat fishing in the Waitemata, but not ideal. He's not only vegan, he's a monk. It's not cool to fish. That's okay, we took shoes. And he ended up coming to all 3 of my stores, met all of my staff. We had a bowl of chips and a smoothie at Dear Jer Voice. He was just the coolest guy. I can't even begin to explain how much that meant to me, that he gave me that time at that human level. And another highlight for me has been Beyonce coming to New Zealand a few years ago. I'm sure you guys, some of you went to her concert. I'm a total fangirl, Beyonce, and that she represents kind of, what she does is good and wholesome, and she empowers others, and she's of course who she is, but she also kind of embraces womanhood. So when she's coming to New Zealand, I was desperate to get my shoes on Beyonce, and anyone that would listen, I'd say, "How am I going to get Beyonce?" And her agent, Sony, were just like, "Oh, closed doors, sorry, she doesn't accept gifts." There's diamond companies that are wanting to leave things in the hotel room, but she's so humble that she says, "No, thank you," even that makes her cooler. So it wasn't going to happen. But at her concert, we girlfriends all had a great time, all went dancing, it was amazing. At the after party at 1885 was in the basement. And I remember seeing across the room, I was with my husband, and I saw her stylist, this guy Ty, who has been with her since Destiny's Child. And he has this distinctive perm fringe. He had a hat on and a beanie, and he's very cool. And I remember saying to Liam, "Babe, that's totally Ty, that's her stylist." And he's going, "Oh God, you're going to embarrass yourself, what's this going to be?" So up I go, and the Sony amazing girl, Taryn, who is marketing for Sony, said, "Well, do you want to meet him? I'll introduce you." I said, "Oh my God, it's incredible, I'd love to." And of course I was a dork, and I said, "Oh, Beyonce's an inspiration to women in business." And we had a photo together, and I was like, "I'm so excited to meet you, I just love your work." All her concert tours are styled by him, so the Balmain one she's just done in Houston this week is still Ty. Incredible. And I was total fangirl with him as well. And then my husband eventually kind of said, "Okay, babe, you lose your cool factor." We left, and in the morning, the girl Taryn from Sony rang and said, "Oh, Ty really remembered meeting you last night. He loved the photo, and he's asked if he could send some shoes. If you could send some shoes to the office, he'd love to show Beyonce." Can you imagine? My knees go. And I always regret, this is a life regret for me, I took these shoes in. I took her a pair of a sample loafer and some little shoes for her daughter Blue, who'd come out with her. I wrote in a blue biro on a postcard, I wrote "Dear Beyonce" in a blue Bic pen. It guts me, because I should have had a beautiful black ink pen. "Dear Beyonce," and I'm probably never going to write that again in my life. Have an amazing time in New Zealand, enjoy the beautiful shoes. So I left them there and thought, that's already a life highlight for me, you know, just imagine if she sees them. And then I went off on this family holiday to Rarotonga, and I remember my husband ringing at like 5 a.m, and I thought something had happened. He wasn't with us, he was back home, and it was my niece's 10th birthday, so I was on the floor of this cold concrete, you know, place in Rarotonga. And when I see the call, I'm like, babe, what's up? He goes, you've got to get near Wi-Fi, babe. Beyonce's put a photo of your shoes on Instagram to 88 million followers. And so it was such a moment for me with no media, no other uptake. It wasn't really about anything other than, for me, what a personal moment that was, that someone as incredible, as international, and, you know, just humbled me that she thought enough of coming to New Zealand and seeing something cool, and she was willing to share that with the world. So probably one of my learnings over the year, well, many learnings over the years, has been to surround yourself with people that kind of bring you up. Whether that's, I know it's meant to be about cleverness, to me it's totally about happiness. And I do that with, you can't help but be drawn towards people around you, hey, that are like yes people. You know, when you've got any idea and you go, and someone goes, yeah, and you're like, oh, amazing. As soon as you start saying, and someone goes, oh, there's all these reasons why it won't work, and you kind of go to the next person, You know, like I'm very much around like following, or a magnet to people that make me really happy, and I know that's a selfish way to look at things, but it's how I'm probably driven around decision making. A lot of it comes, you know, I feel like a lot of it as an entrepreneur comes from the tummy, as they say. And so for me it is very much a big part of all the people that have helped me. We had a 15th birthday exhibition this year here after our Fashion Week show, so we had 1,000 people in the audience for our showcase, and then took 400 people upstairs to celebrate our 15th birthday with an event called The Tribute, and it was acknowledging 15 people that had helped me over 15 years. And in that was Roseanne Mayo, Dame Roseanne, who has, you know, I met on the judging panel, Julie Christie, who has, she helped me with the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur in the Year finalists program. Bo Runga, who was a flatmate of mine, and then as our careers, she's done jewellery, I've done shoes, you know, we've done lots together. She was in the show for me this year, opening as a drummer girl. And, you know, there's people that I guess just have said yes when you've gone to them. It's just wonderful. And I think, as I said earlier, in New Zealand, there is no 7 degrees of separation, there's truly 2. So I have taken that fully for granted, in the sense that I've like asked every opportunity that I can for help. And I guess my learnings, at the end of the day, what's most important is to be the mother that I can be, that my mother was to me, in the sense to little Lolabelle, that obviously anything she can be in the world, you know, if she wants to be a rocket scientist, yes, you will. It wasn't until I was about 21 in my first job at Caroline Sills that I met someone, my colleague, Richard Moore, that said, you can't be an Olympic swimmer if you really want to be, just because you want to be. I was like, yes, you can. He goes, no, you actually have to be good at swimming. I was like, no, because you just train. You know, like I'd been brought up in a way like I was absolutely maybe naive to a lot of things in the world, but very much in a way of you can and you will and you should. So I want to pass that on to my daughter most importantly. Thank you for having me. I have got time for questions. I'm so sorry about the voice because I feel really monotonous, so I hope it wasn't too flat.
No, it was wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
Kathryn, that really was so fascinating. Isn't it so refreshing to hear someone talk about optimism and having a cup that's full and finding the joy and celebration in what you do, because it is so easy to get bogged down in corporate and commercial success, and we can forget why it is that we even started on the journey. So it really is so refreshing and such a great reminder, I think, to us all to hold on to those values. So thank you so much. And your voice just sounds sexy and cool.
Yeah. Like a man.
Well, yes, we do have time for a few questions. So if anyone has a question, you can submit it on the Mobi site, or you can just put up your hand the old school way. We've got a couple coming through already. This is from Mona Lisa. After Beyonce posted a photo of your shoes, have you had other celebs hit you up?
It's interesting. Like, we definitely have in New Zealand, when people come to visit, there's PR agencies that say, Celine's in town, do you want to send a gift? So, you know, this week is Cher, for example. I said, like, she's an incredible woman, but it's not someone that I associated so much Beyonce to me personally on what she represented, hence why it's not really the celebrity value for me. It was more like what I really valued in her as a woman that kind of led me. So yes, you get asked all the time. Pink here, do you want to dress her in shoes? Or it's probably led by the agents, not the actual person. Pink's probably never ever heard of me and never, But a lot of that is around, yes, there's an incredible culture now of, as you know, bloggers and influencers and Instagrammers, and it's not something we focus on. I get really excited when I see Antonia in our shoes, and we have so many friends of the brand that support us because they genuinely love the shoes, and so those are more likely the relationships that we nurture. And I'm more than happy to send Christmas presents or people that have supported us along the way. The celebrity value, I don't think that culture really exists much in New Zealand.
Right, so it's more about the authentic connection with a human being as opposed to just their brand representation.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Rochelle says, you are clearly an empowered woman surrounded by really good support. How do you empower your staff to balance work and play?
I guess it's led from the top, isn't it? So I'm a mother, and I encourage all of our staff are very aware that I'm always going to be flexible in the sense of when you need to be somewhere, go. I'm never going to question it. They also own their own jobs and they own their own departments, so I'm really against micromanaging. I'm sure you all are. I don't ever check in the sense that the more hand-holding or the more you need to, I feel it takes something away from them. And it's often something that comes up in our management meetings, and even we have a virtual CFO, and it'll come down to job descriptions of, do you feel like you need to take them back out for coffee and talk about their job description? I said, well, if you need to do that, they're probably the wrong person in that job. It's more for me. I really appreciate people owning their roles and really stepping up, and the more responsibility I throw at them, even if it means they're completely in the deep end, I found in my experience they rise to the occasion. And the more that you try and kind of come across, is everything okay here, and did you do what you needed to do, and then you can see them start to shrink and shrink and shrink. And I don't know, in terms of using initiative, I think it's very much self-led in a small business. I mean, it's easy for me because we've got 10 of us at head office. So I'm sure when you're in bigger teams it's harder, and you do need that middle management to be overseeing things. But very much from my perspective, if you let people rise to the occasion, they end up empowering them to take more on and be braver and make decisions. And so long as the values are always there and led from the top, that they're making those right decisions based on the values that you teach.
And then they'll want to stick around with you because they're able to grow within their position as opposed to having to go elsewhere to find growth.
So. I'd like to think so. Julia's been with me 8.5 years, and she started as truly like an assistant to me, and that was not in the sense of helping me with basics. It's like doing what I do when I'm not in the room. She's kind of grown to be the head designer of our Miss Wilson collection, and she is wholesale sales manager now for New Zealand, Australia. So it's almost like she's grown within that role to an extent where she's now, she was 25 when she's joined us, and she's a big kid now with a mortgage and a husband, a fiance, and we've grown up together.
So they can grow as the business grows.
Exactly. Yeah. That will be my dream, really, that you provide an environment where they have their dream career.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I get to work with shoes every day and I love what I do, all you can hope for is that your team, they've chosen to work with me, definitely not for the money, because I can't offer them what some big, massive companies can, but it's more, they're part of something really special. They're family to me, and I will give them all the love and encouragement and nurturing I can to make them grow in their career.
Yeah, amazing. Shelley says that she loves shoes. Can she please come and work for you for free on Mondays? Where's Shelley?
Totally, anytime.
There she is at the back. Very good.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions on the floor? Well, I have a question. You're obviously a busy woman with a lot on your plate. How do you manage your time? Do you have any strategies for organisation?
I'm a detail person, and it drives my husband crazy because he's the opposite. So I like my ducks in a row, and I like to have a plan. And when it doesn't go to plan, it kind of throws me because I'm like, no, you guys, that was the plan. So I know that in business, and especially small business, it never goes to plan. And then I had a child. And that definitely didn't go to plan, like the whole baby thing. You're like, what do I do with this? I've read the book, it's not happening. So I've had to learn to be more flexible and think outside the square. But I think in terms of managing my own schedule, it has to be, it's months ahead. And in terms of travel and weeks, and I mean, it's hard, isn't it, as we get older and more commitments and family and everything, your friends are so important to me. So I literally put in the calendar, as sad as this is, walks with my girlfriends, and it's like a meeting, once a week to see this friend, or every weekend to lock in yoga. It's like, because it has to be considered, there's no balance, and there probably never will be. It's the same as all of us in the room. There's no life balance, there's no such thing. So I think I've treated my personal life as something that's really important to block out as well. Travel takes up so much of the year that you can pretty much say there's half of them that you're going to be away, and half of them's probably going to have a work commitment on that weekend. So it leaves you with about 15 weekends that you can have to yourself or use for your friends. And so it's almost like I'm sure you're all the same. So having to break that down and prioritise yourself and whatever that means to you. And then, of course, your health, it's like, your health is everything. My husband's just booked me to Gwyn, Ghana next weekend. I don't know if anyone's been, but I haven't been before. It's a health retreat in Australia, but it's where they work on, it's called Nourish You, the program I'm doing, and they work on teaching you about how important sleep is and how important literally what goes in helps you function, and seminars about meditation and, just learnings around, yes, everyone's got a busy life and we're all in it for a good time, so we usually run till you're burnt at both ends. But I'm really looking forward to, I guess I'm 38 now, and I think it's probably becoming more apparent that if you put yourself and your health first, you can be a better person for everyone else around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fill up your own cup.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, but perhaps we can end on a question about the future. Now that you have a business plan and everything, where do you see yourself over the next 5-10 years? Where would you like the business to grow to?
Yeah, well, it is exciting, and as I said, I've just acquired 100% shareholding this year. That was something that's taken years because, can you imagine, the awkward conversations, elephant in the room with shareholding valuations, and that kept changing, and as we were growing, it was getting harder and harder for me to fund. I wanted to get the business to a point where it would be able to do that without me personally being affected in terms of financially, so it's been a really big thing to happen. But part of the joy of that has been to put things in place in terms of 5-year, 10-year strategies of how I wanted it to be and what that means for me. Not my business partner in the past has been a silent partner and a shareholder that didn't come in and kind of block decisions as such, but I was still always a little bit held back by not wanting to let them down, or the risks I was taking was more around, I didn't want them to be worrying at night about thousands of pairs of shoes in the warehouse and things. So for me, it's exciting now. I can truly be focused on what I see as the true, goals or outcomes for how big we want to grow it. There's a lot of retail expansion opportunity in New Zealand. We've got 3 stores in Auckland, but I'd love to have Wellington, Christchurch and Queenstown almost as soon as I can. In terms of, we have 100 stockists around the country, so it's supporting them, and obviously our online e-commerce growth is insane, and it's really, I'm learning along those. Those conversations are so over my head about what you can do now online and how savvy people, over 50% of our users are on a device. So our website purchases are all people on the go and they're, in a hurry, and 70% of users to our website are new customers, so it's incredible. They're spending over 3 minutes on our site. So these learnings are just constantly kind of changing the way you do things and the way you see things. And in terms of opportunity and growth, there's incredible growth coming from the e-commerce sector.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us today. It really has been just such a lovely reminder of holding on to what we enjoy, and that is actually what we should be putting ahead of everything else, really. So thank you very much. Let's give Kathryn a round of applause once again. And straight home to bed with you now.